na tulisema tungetafsiri, lakini wote wameuliza kwa Kiingereza, kwa hiyo tumepiga hatua kabisa, tumepiga hatua kabisa. Asanteni sana.
So, I mean, look, let's break that down to the simplest thing that I'm talking about. When I talk about energy security, I'm talking about access to reliable sources of electricity. That's really what I'm talking about. Partly because I believe, and some people don't agree with me on this, but I believe that everything that we do will be electrified. And the sooner the better, frankly. It's far better to cook with electricity than it is to cook with burning wood, which lots of people in this country are still doing. They have to breathe the smoke and all the other things. It's better to drive, to be mobile as a result of electricity than burning oil and those other things. So everything's going to become electrified. Now, the more you electrify, the more the security of the electrical infrastructure becomes important, right? Today, we established that 60% of people in this country are not connected to the electric grid. They don't care when there's a blackout. It doesn't mean anything to them, okay, because they don't get to take advantage of it. But when they do electrify, as I'm certain they will and they deserve to, because that will create opportunities for them, then it becomes more and more important to have reliance. How do we get reliance? Well, we need to stop relying on centralized infrastructure, because when you have centralized infrastructure, power generation, transmission, distribution, somebody plugs in, you only have to cut one part of that chain and everything downstream from it doesn't work anymore. That's too vulnerable. By the way, that should not go away. That should exist. But with it should coexist lots of disintegrated and decentralized energy infrastructure so that if there is a power failure, at least vital requirements are still met. How do we get there? We get there by, again, leveraging the resources that you already have. They're already here and they're plentiful and abundant, and then combine them with the new technologies, particularly energy storage. A lot of people are going to tell you can't rely on solar or wind or because of intermittency. When the sun's not shining, what happens? When it's not windy, what happens? Well, that's a problem that we've already solved. We've been doing it for over a decade now by using energy storage. When the sun is shining, we're filling up energy storage. When it's windy, we're filling up energy storage. And then at night time when it's not shining or when the wind's not blowing, we're relying on the storage to supply the needs. So again, it's a myth to say the technology is not here. It's also a myth to say that there's not an economic way to get this done. It just requires a little bit of an intelligent approach, and it's been proven in other places. And I think again here, because you have such a great opportunity with natural resources and the fact that you don't have the incumbent infrastructure, this is probably one of the best places to try that and to prove it. The higher the percentage of your so-called disposable income you have to spend on fuel, whatever it is, okay? Rich people, it doesn't even impact their lives. Fuel doesn't impact their life, it's meaningless to them. But when you're poor, it's a very large percentage of your disposable income. If we can provide energy sources that have zero unit cost for the energy, and I mean that genuinely. When we deploy our infrastructure, yes, we have to amortize. We've got to capitalize that cost. That we need to figure out how to finance those costs. But the unit cost for energy is zero today, and it will always be zero for about the next 5 billion years. We're very confident about the sun being around for the next 5 billion years. Okay, so certainly, if we want to help people get out of poverty, there's a couple of things we need to do. We need to give them energy resources. It's going to be very hard to get out of poverty if you can't communicate, if you can't do all the things that modern economies require. It's also going to be very hard for them to get out of poverty if they can't move around. So that's why I'm so focused on energy and mobility, because I think if we can provide those two things with zero cost of energy to people, that would be one of the surest ways of getting people out of poverty. It's also, by the way, a great assist for education too. And of course, education is the beginning of all of these things. But the best answer I can give you is we need to get that fuel cost out of people, especially a very volatile fuel cost out of people's lives, and allow them to take advantage of the resources that are here. If you believe in God, thanks to God, or if you don't, then thanks to nature. But they're here and they're free. We just need to leverage them. Just for 1 second, imagine if you were an alien looking down on this planet and you said, hey, hang on a minute, they have all this free, abundant energy, and they ignore it, and they fight each other over stuff that they don't need to use, and they spend vast sums of money on it. You'd think we were crazy, and you know what we are. I think the good news is previously in history we haven't necessarily had the opportunity to take advantage of these new technologies, but we do now, and so that's a good thing for everybody, and it's frankly the lower down the socioeconomic ladder you are, the more you're going to benefit from it.
So when are you planning to start?
Oh, when are we planning on starting? Well, this is the start. Okay, this is the beginning. Again, you can't be arrogant about the way you enter a new market. You have to learn first. Nobody has a solution that solves every problem for every person. So we need to come here and do a lot of learning, and then after that we need to put those learnings into action. But look, I'll tell you, as I said, I'm a quick study, learn quickly. I'm also incredibly impatient. Beam Global is an impatient company, and so I didn't come here to grow a beard. I came here to get something moving, and again, I have fortunately surrounded by very capable and equally enthusiastic people who will help us with that. Tanzanians, I'm talking about people who understand Tanzania and the needs of the Tanzanian people and the government and everything else here. I'm going to take a lot of advice and learning from them rather than trying to impose my own ideas. 48 hours ago. That's an excellent point. This current war in the Middle East is just reminding us yet again that our reliance on oil and frankly, on supply chains and on energy sources that come from outside of your national boundaries is a vulnerability. Oil is very volatile. The price of it's very volatile. It goes all over the place. And then it's also very vulnerable to supply chain shocks. What's going on in the Straits of Hormuz right now shows us that the Straits of Hormuz only control 20% of the world's oil. But if there's a rise in oil prices there, because oil is fungible, there's a rise in oil prices everywhere. I want to come back to what I said earlier. You have the resources here. You have natural resources here which are plentiful, and you have people here who are able to put them to work given the right technology and the right knowledge base. So I think this is a very good time to do this, actually. It's horrible that we have to be constantly reminded of these vulnerabilities and of the fact that we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. All of us do it in our personal lives, and we do it in sort of national and international ways as well. But we do have technology, we do have solutions, and we do have ways to get beyond this. One of the things that's so exciting about the entire continent of Africa is you've got a very youthful population. There's no other continent on the planet that has the same levels of opportunity for growth in the coming future. But also, you're not held back by incumbent infrastructure in the same way that the West is. Think about the fact that not nobody, but there wasn't universal adoption of landline telephones here, and yet now everybody has a cell phone to communicate. You hopscotched over the old technology and went straight to the new technology. Okay, it's my great hope that similarly there will not be universal adoption of petrol and diesel and polluting vehicles. You'll hopscotch to electric, clean operating vehicles, and not running on electricity from burning coal, oil, or natural gas, but running on renewable sources. That's another opportunity to hopscotch there. And then where your grid infrastructure is concerned, the grid here needs some help. You have grid interruptions. I saw it flying in here last night. I saw a blackout last night. Let's again not get bogged down in the old incumbent 100-year-old technology. Let's hopscotch to the new technology, generating and storing electricity close to load in a way which is not vulnerable to centralized failures. So the timing's always right to do the right thing. Okay, and this is definitely the right thing. But I think particularly the points that you raised makes this a very good time to do it, because we are being reminded in a very, well, certainly in an economic way by rising oil prices, but also looking at the television every day by the destruction that's going on, that we need to find a better way of doing things, and we can.
How much will Tanzanians benefit?
I'm sorry, I still didn't get that.
How will Tanzanians benefit?
How will Tanzanians benefit? Well, as I said, access to reliable electricity and access to reliable transportation are absolutely essential to the modern economy. I mean, think about it, all of us in our lives, none of us do anything nowadays that doesn't have electricity at the root of it. If you look around this city here, electricity is actually central to that. And so is mobility. We don't have to look very far to see how much congestion there is in the streets to see that people need to move around to do what they're doing. So Tanzanians will benefit from having not just electricity, but clean and reliable and sustainable electricity that's actually generated from resources that you own, that are here. When we deploy infrastructure, the unit cost for energy is zero because we get it all from natural resources. You don't have to go somewhere else and spend your funds paying other countries for resources. At the moment here, you're importing natural gas and importing oil. That money leaves the country and goes somewhere else, enriches somebody else. Let's take advantage of the resources they have in this country. That will benefit people here. And then from a mobility side, look, when the first modern humans left Africa 100,000 years ago till today, what we've learned is that humans like being mobile. They're more successful when they're mobile. The better solutions that we give them for mobility, the better they do from a commerce point of view, the more fulfillment they get in their lives, the healthier they are. And also we're able to empower law enforcement, EMT services and fire services and all the other services that people rely on in cities and outside of them for life. To lead good lives by having access to those two vital components, reliable electricity, reliable transportation, and so that's how they will benefit. So far, no. Listen, I want to make sure that I'm really clear. I just got here. This is a learning trip for me. I have a team of fantastically talented people around me here in Tanzania who know already. They've forgotten more than I will ever learn about this place. So I'm not going to put myself in a position of being an expert on any of that stuff. We're going to come here. We're going to learn. We're going to listen, and then we are going to apply resources and deliver our ideas about what we think's good, and then we're going to allow the people who actually live here and who work here and who create the opportunities here, and that includes government and private sector people, to guide us on where the best places to deploy resources. Certainly, our experience has been that government has to take a role in this. This is infrastructure, okay? Infrastructure cannot be left to the private sector alone, because the problem with that is they only address profit centers. And that's not what infrastructure should do. It should address all people and give all people opportunities, regardless of where they are in the profit ladder. So government will have to take a role. And the great news is that is already happening. Your president, Mama Samia, has taken a great leadership role in this and set some really enviable goals for Tanzania. We're here to help you meet them. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at the actual infrastructure requirements here. Let's see how we can get electricity to people who don't have it. Let's see how we can get reliable sources of electricity to people who live in places where there are blackouts and brownouts. Let's see how we can allow people to move around with mobility that doesn't rely on petrol or diesel and imported sources of energy that pollute and that harm people and that cost them a lot of money. Let's look at all of those things first. I think that's where we're going to start out. And then when we do that, we're going to need pre-sale support. That means hiring people here. Once the infrastructure is deployed, we're going to need after-sale support, which means hiring and training people with technical skills. And not for yesterday's industries, not for yesterday's capabilities, but we're talking about training people with skills for tomorrow's industries and creating careers for people, not jobs. I know there's a lot of hunger, especially amongst young people here, for new technology, particularly clean technologies, and for new opportunities. And that starts with reliable electricity. It starts with reliable and by the way, broadly available transportation and mobility as well. So what I said earlier about democratizing access to safe, sustainable, reliable and affordable electricity, and safe, sustainable, reliable and affordable mobility, those are going to be our two major areas of focus, and we're going to let the market lead us where it takes us. Yes, so I think Tanzania is obviously a fantastic opportunity for us to come into. There are great reasons to be here. First of all, Zanzibar, of course, is an island community. Island communities are typically hard to serve with electricity. The tourism, it's a community which is entirely based on a tourism economy. You need reliable sources of electricity. You need clean sources of transportation. But beyond that, on mainland in Tanzania, we have as much as 60% of the population who is not connected to electricity at the moment, and the electricity that we are producing here, as much as 48% of it's coming from natural gas, which, while it's cleaner than oil and coal, is still not 100% emissions free. What our intention here is to come here with humility and learn about the market and see how we can assist your leaders who already have very worthy and aggressive plans about clean electricity and getting electricity out to the broader population. We have products which are ideally suited to do that, and we want to learn about what the best way to do that. Now, on top of that, the state of California, under the leadership of Governor Gavin Newsom, has signed a couple of memoranda of understanding with countries in East Africa with the aim of bringing California sustainable technology to this part of the world and learning from this part of the world what the best way to leverage that and to make everybody's lives better. Tanzania's got a young, growing and well-educated population who are looking for opportunities. You need reliable sources of electricity. You need reliable and clean transportation for people to be able to exercise those opportunities and take advantage of them. And we're here to see if we can assist in any way, however small, in that very exciting transition.